On October 15th, Tom Dyas is asking for your vote to become the next mayor of Kelowna for the next 4 years. Tom, thanks for sitting down and talking to us today.
Thank you, Wayne.
Tom, it's your second kick at the can, so to speak, to become mayor of Kelowna. Why did you decide to run again this year?
Well, since the last election, I've been speaking with many people, and especially since when I announced at the end of June 24th, and the individuals that I've been speaking with have concerns for this community. As you know, Kelowna is, number one nationally with respect to crime. It has, the most traffic that we've ever seen, the most homelessness that we've ever seen within this community. There are concerns for a lot of individuals, especially that missing middle with regards to affordable housing. And the taxation rate, as we had just been communicating over the last little bit, is, amongst the highest of the 10 major cities within British Columbia. So having those discussions with individuals and speaking with them, a lot of their concern was that they just do not feel like they're being heard. They're feeling that by the time decisions are made at City Hall, or by the time they get to communicate their concerns to City Hall, the decision has already been made. And in this election, we saw a third party come into this and register as a third party and put together a communication of individuals that they supported. And a lot of that was because they had been communicating for a number of years and just had not been heard. So the reason why I looked at running again is because over the last 8 years, it's a lot of those concerns that people have with the community have gotten worse. And I feel that there has been a lot of talk, there has been a lot of communication, but there hasn't been action on those items. And the community wants action. They want things to change in the areas of concern that they have. And they're looking for someone to come forward who understands that, yes, you need to work with all levels of government. It is extremely important to work with federal levels of government and provincial levels of government, but it's not just good enough to say, we can't do anything without their support. There are many items, small adjustments that we can make in all those areas that'll start to give this community a much better feel. So with my experience that I have, I've been 37 years now in the insurance and financial industry, and I'm still in the industry, but I was able to succession plan with my son. So when I'm successful and become mayor of Kelowna, he is now able to look at taking over that business, and that will continue to be strong. The committees that I've served on, I sit on the Okanagan College board with regards to business course development. I've sat on the Journey Home Committee. I was appointed by the city to the initial Journey Home Committee, so they entrusted me with that appointment. I sit on the Child Advocacy Center board and have since the conception of that. I have stepped down as I'm running for mayor. I also sat on the Airport Advisory Committee. I sat I chaired the 2020 Memorial Cup bid. As you know, Wayne, as you know, we had numerous meetings with regards to that, and we were successful. Regrettably, due to COVID, we weren't able to have it. And I was past president of the Chamber of Commerce for 10 years, and or I was with the Chamber of Commerce for 10 years, but president for 2 years. And that opportunity gave me the ability to speak to all levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipal, on a lot of policy issues. There was policy issues like the interprovincial transfer of wine. We worked with regards to the indexing on property tax. I spoke out and we were able to kind of, have further conversations with regards to a national park in the South Okanagan. And when Finance Minister Bill Morneau came into town and the Prime Minister came into town, and they were looking at implementing the tax on small businesses so that small businesses would incur that tax, I was asked to speak to them and was able to get time with them. Now, it was our messaging with much messaging across the country that was able to change the dial on that. So there is the ability to negotiate with different levels of government and be successful in that. So cumulatively, when it came with my decades of experience in business, small business, and being able to represent small business, but also within the community and serving on the boards, knowing how to chair meetings, knowing how to be able to communicate with members of the board so that we're able to move the agenda forward on items. I decided that this time, with a little more time, because as you know, last time I was just coming off the successful win of the Memorial Cup bid, and that basically took up about 4 months of my time, plus the team that we put together. And so the last run, I only had about 6 or 7 weeks. This time has been a lot longer, and it has allowed me to communicate with many members of our community and just know their concerns, and a lot of their concerns are around not being heard.
Do you believe it hurts you that you are not currently sitting on City Council, that you haven't decided to take a run at a council seat first, mayor second?
There are examples of many individuals who have had good business experience. Our current mayor is good friends with the previous mayor of Calgary. He never sat as on council. He then became mayor of Calgary and has been a little bit of a mentor to our current mayor. We have other examples of, look at what we're dealing with the president of Ukraine right now. Those are examples of individuals who have skill sets to be able to communicate. I think the important item of a mayor and council is that it's like a board. It's like a board of directors that have to make decisions. So on that board of directors, you basically want the most talented individuals on council. You want a skill set on council so that it's diversified and you have strength in that council. And as a mayor, you want someone who is able to get the best out of those individuals, keep them working together. And I would be the first ones to, communicate the message that I do not know everything. It is a lot of work for any mayor or anyone to say that they know everything about all the specific items that we have to deal with. But what I've done over the years and what I'm able to do is put smart people in a room, smarter than me, on the issues that they know best, and whiteboard those issues and come up with answers. And come up with answers that are able to fix problems. And not look at saying it's another level of government's concern, it's another level of government's problem. This is our community. This is people want to be heard within this community. Myself, like many others, I raised my 3 children here. 2 of them are still here. Both of my boys are still here. My daughter's in Victoria, and they want to. I want to live here for the rest of my life. So we love this community. We just want to make sure that this once was a small town and is now turning into a larger city. And with that, there's cracks that are beginning to show. I felt that it was important for me to, look at moving forward and dealing with some of those issues.
You've mentioned public safety as being an issue, social issues being an issue, homelessness, crime, affordability, etc. Our current mayor has also brought up those issues as being of concern. you could argue that this mayor and council has worked, with other levels of government and brought in or helped bring in complex care housing that's coming soon. Helped with the judicial reforms recommendations that were announced last week, and other measures that are coming into the city, over the last number of years. That they've done that. How could you do that differently or better than they've already done?
It is good that there was 20 beds announced for this community. The uncertainty of when those beds will be put into place, where they will be put into place, is I think is a concern for the community. We all know that we're within a few weeks away from an election, and things get announced at that particular point in time. Also, with regards to prolific offenders. The concern about prolific offenders. I read that report, or as much of it as we could, and much as it as released, and I think that the individuals were hoping that there would be action within that report, that there'd be something that would be, to actually make a difference. And myself, along with individuals that I've spoken other levels of government, were disappointed that there wasn't more action items to deal with. Kelowna at this particular point in time has a crime rate of 11,000 or 11,000 crimes per 100,000 people. So what's being said within different sources is that we have prolific offenders that are creating about 1,000 of those crimes. So even if we look at removing out of that 11,000, 1,000, we're still at 10,000 crimes per 100,000 people. The closest on a national level is 9,000 crimes per 100,000 people. So we are still at number one, even when you remove those prolific offenders. And that has all occurred. We were 4 years ago, we were sixth on a national level with regards to crime. Then we went to fourth, then we went to third, and now we're at first. It's trending the wrong way, and it has trended the wrong way over the last 8 years. There is, this individual who is currently our mayor had 3 years on council and 8 years as mayor, so that's 11 years, and it seems to be going in the wrong direction.
So how do you turn it into the right direction? I mean, again, you've laid out the problem. Where's the solution?
Little things like there is, when we're looking at the different areas, so one specific area, let's say with crime. Yeah. So you're dealing with crime. There was things like a citizens patrol. Mm-hmm. Simple little thing, our neighbors all have citizens patrol. That was something that moved the index on crime. It's moved the index. It's brought the index down on crime in their particular areas. It wouldn't have to go far. All you'd have to do is drive across the bridge and have a discussion or go to Lake Country and find out how it's actually working. That's a simple thing that's action. That's something that is looking at being done. With regards to having a lot of construction, and there's a lot of construction that is done on a lot of building, but none of it is done through the lens of how is it built so that it ends up being, it's architecturally built so that there are not dark spots. The bike storage is not at the side of the building. So through design, you're basically environmentally designing safe buildings. Another thing that would be, very important to me was if you were running a business or a corporation and you knew that there was a problem with that corporation and it was an acute problem, you would deal with that problem every day until it's actually fixed, or at least on a weekly basis. I would meet with the superintendent of the RCMP on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. During the summer months, what happened is the RCMP did a report and said that there was concerns with regards to crime. There was a council meeting, and our mayor had even said in that council meeting, well, we really don't have a problem with crime because tourists keep coming here. About a week later, we get another report saying that we're number one on national crime. So there's a disconnect there. There's a disconnect. I mean, are you really realizing and knowing exactly what is happening if all that happens in a period of a month and a half? And then after that, the crime is kind of put and blamed upon prolific offenders and our tourism industry. Well, Niagara Falls has tourism, Vancouver has tourism, Whistler has tourism, and they're not number one, nationally on crime. So there's lots of other things that go into it, but the action is the most important. Little things that can actually be done to kind of, move the dial with respect to the concerns on crime. In speaking with individuals, it's one of the biggest issues that I've heard. They're concerned for that, the traffic, the congestion with respect to the traffic, and that will our infrastructure ever be able to keep up with some of the choices or be able to catch up to some of the choices that have been made already at this point in time. And those are roadways, our water, sewer, all of those particular items.
Talk about infrastructure, talk about development. This council has been very clear that it wants to bring development into its 5 urban centers. It doesn't want to continue the urban sprawl out into the farther reaches, because it does cost more to bring the infrastructure out there from transit, water, sewer, as you talked about. That they want to bring it in closer to the major centers where those infrastructure pieces are already in place. Are you happy with the way that the city is developing in those core areas?
I, like many people, realize that this is an absolutely beautiful place to live. And we are going to have more people move to our community. So we need to plan for that. What is also happening is we can't plan for we keep being told that there's 40 or 50,000 people that are going to come here. We can't plan for the 40 or 50,000 that are going to come here and forget about the 150 that are already here. In the communications that I have had, we're families that have grown here and their children, wanted to stay here also, are having difficulty finding that affordable housing. So we're losing those families that have been here for 20, 30, 40 years because their grandparents or their parents want to make sure that they're growing up where the grandchildren are growing up, but they're concerned that their children aren't going to be able to find housing here. To specifically deal with the urban areas that have been slotted, I think that is overall good planning. But when we have developments that is happening and we're looking at something which is outside the OCP, because again, speaking with individuals, they understand that there's an official community plan. Many of them were part of the official community plan. They know the cost of that document, the hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s that was spent on that document. It just seems, though, that it's a guide, as was said in council chambers. It's not a plan. And I believe that's where the frustration comes with a lot of people. If you have a house that backs onto an area that is going to be developed, and initially the setback was 60 feet, and then through a variance it moves to 30 feet, and then through another variance it moves to 10 feet, and the height was supposed to be 20 feet, but now through a variance it goes to 30 feet, 50 feet. So now you have a backyard that everybody's looking down into. Those are the things that have really frustrated individuals within our community. The other part of that for our urban centers and our areas is that with these developments and with the variances that have been given, if you're looking at building something which is 12 stories, and through the process of looking for a variance, you're able to take it to 25 stories. Yes, regular DCCs are charged on the 12 stories and also on the next 13 stories. But at the top of that 13 or at the top of the 25th, you're paying the same DCC that you would pay on basically a bottom level unit. But that maybe is now a penthouse. And that penthouse is being sold for millions and millions of dollars. So the developer is definitely profiting from that. But the community isn't getting anything back. Our infrastructure is suffering because now we potentially have put more people on our roads, or we've used an average of 0.0 parking spots for that building, and we've clogged up our roads more along the sides. we need to obtain a structure where when those variances are given and those higher units, there's something else that comes back to the community. Is it daycare spaces? Is it grocery stores? What is it? Because if you're selling that unit at that higher amount, it is not fair to the community, you know, that you're not getting more for those variances into play. So I'm in agreement, as you mentioned, that it is important to densify, but it also is important to understand that not every family that has 2 children or want to live on the 12th floor of a building. We need to make sure that we're also looking at townhomes. We need to make sure that we're also looking at basement suites. I was out in the Lower Mission and speaking with 2 families. There was actually 3 that they spoke of, but the 2 that I was speaking to, they were going to put carriage homes in their, on their properties. Now these were individuals who had 3 children or 2 or 3 children, but now there was just the 2 of them. So it doesn't really affect our infrastructure, the water, sewer, because there was really 5 people living there anyways. But now there's 2. So they were going to put a carriage home. When the rates of a carriage home went up by over 800%, they just said, you know what, we're not going to anymore. We feel like we are being penalized for a decision that we wanted to make within our community to house other individuals. And it just, they walked away from it. And
No, in fairness, that was a provincial government recommendation, not a city.
But there are other items, or there are other ways, because they referenced it, that other cities do that. Some cities have looked and said, okay, well, if you're going to build a carriage home, let it be a percentage of your overall cost of, you know, the cost of doing it. That's a little fairer with regards to it than just kind of right across the board, because the assumption there is, if you use a factor of 10%, is that you're putting $250,000 into a carriage home. But I don't know the setup for these people, whether they already had a concrete slab down and they were going to build it, but if they're going to put it at, let's say, $150,000, you know, then it's only 15. So those were the discussions on where it went. Yes, it was provincial, but there is the opportunity to look at other examples that are used throughout the province.
I want to give you one opportunity, or one final opportunity, to look in the camera and talk to the voters of the city of Kelowna and explain to them why they should put an X beside Tom Dyas' name on October 15th.
As I had mentioned a little bit earlier, my decades of business experience, my decades of serving on boards, the time that I'm at in my life allows me that I'm not working with children. I mean, I'm not dealing with children. My children are not at home. The ability for me to commit myself to this job 100%, and the need for change within our community. I think it is extremely important that everyone be certain that they look at the advance polls on October 5th and get out and vote if they can make the advance polls, but to vote on October 15th. The community, from what I heard, wants to be heard and wants to be listened to, and they're feeling that that is not the case right now. Voting is an opportunity for them to be heard and for them to be listened to. So I thank you for, you know, the opportunity to sit here today and have this discussion with you. And I, you know, thank everyone in Kelowna for all those doors that I stood on and those people who opened those doors and had conversations with me, and just ask everyone to make certain that, that they have an opportunity for them and their family members to vote in this municipal election.
Tom Dyas, looking for your vote for mayor of the city of Kelowna. Tom, good luck on the 15th.
Thank you, Wayne.